In order for IBM to still be relevant in the future, they need to embrace the software, right?
What does IBM do?
Running 70% of the internet, including all the financial transactions, which is insane. But technically what is happening, like as we are shifting from databases to blockchains, like bank A has his database, bank B has his database, your database is not going to look like my database, but blockchains is like, wait, you use the same blockchain as I. Now it's like easy. And so they approached us in February, March. We just hit yesterday general availability at IBM. So that means that now it's actually rubber stamp. Everything's like, good to go.
In my view, as someone who's been in the space for years, this relationship is one of the most exciting, high upside, real applications of this technology.
It's a shift. It's a turning point.
The blockchain is one of the most fundamental technologies since the early days of the internet. Blockchain is going to change transactions. What the internet did for information, the blockchain will do for transactions.
All right, we're here live at Solana Breakpoint 2025. We're sitting down with Chris from Dfns. This is our first interview. I'm so excited to have you here with us. How you doing?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm good. Yourself?
Doing amazing. You were just giving us the context of the meaning of this place in relationship to Dfns as you guys are growing. Maybe we start there. Just give us a little bit of Abu Dhabi and the relationship to Further and what this specific part of the world has meant to Dfns as you guys have gotten started. We can kick off there.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think we were pretty lucky to have Further Ventures, which is the VC arm of ADQ, the sovereign wealth fund in Abu Dhabi, lead our Series A. At the same time, we also picked them. So I guess we had some talent into picking the right VC, but turns out that they have been a formidable accelerator for us in the region because you have this amazing oasis in, especially within the past, I would say, year or two, when the market has not always been kind, right? You have had this like place in the desert that is filled with capital, a lot of friendly regulators that want to understand and try to make this happen and try to create a framework that is welcoming on-chain activity that wants to grow and take a place and play a role in the global markets. You had traditionally New York, London, Singapore kind of triad. That was that's the liquidity rail historically. And it seems to us that Abu Dhabi is like becoming this new city that is actually pulling the gravity towards it and creating a quator, if you like. So we do have customers here like ADI Foundation, which is now issuing the AED-backed, dirham-backed stablecoin alongside First Abu Dhabi Bank, the biggest bank in the region. There are so many other projects in wealth management and payments and capital market settlements where, you have enough players, counterparties that want to work, that are working with each other in TradFi, that want to together see what it looks like to actually work on chain. And that kind of group effect and cohesion that exists in the region is like an amazing incubator for a lot of ideas and new projects. So yeah, I would say it's an amazing fertilizer.
And so giving some context to backing up a little bit, what Dfns does, where you sit in the stack, you have such a unique perspective because you see all of those use cases, not just from what are clients activating, what are they building, but also where in the world they're doing that. So give us a little bit of like the high level of Dfns, how long you've been in business. You're not new to the game here. And then, what you're doing. And then also going back to this part of the world and what you're seeing from like accounts, wallets, security, banks, like what's happening with the Dfns stack here uniquely that may look different than other parts of the world.
Yeah, for sure. So we started 5.5 years ago, August 2020. So what we mean by wallet infrastructure is essentially the gateway to a blockchain. In our case, we support 50 plus blockchains. So it makes us a multi-chain gateway, if you will, but you cannot read or write to the chain, to those networks, if you don't use a wallet, which means a key management service that can produce signatures and means a node that you can read data from, right? So those are the two kind of raw elements that make a wallet. Now, what's interesting is that, people have a very different understanding of about what a wallet is, and most of it will come from like a consumer experience, or you're going to download a Phantom wallet or something like that, and that's going to be your first experience, like physically with a wallet.
And you're going to know that I'm going to get a wallet or to download this thing. It's very top of mind, and it's something that you want to do or really aware of doing.
Exactly. Yeah. So what I say to people is like, if I have this key management service, I create this key, I generate a signature coming from me. So I know I am me, right? So this is me sending the signature to approve a transaction, and I can send or receive Sol from Solana. That's a Solana wallet. All right, cool. Now you add Bitcoin to that. Now you have a multi-chain wallet. But it's still a stupid wallet. It's kind of simple. You want to now, block a transaction because you have chain analysis giving you compliance data and flagging that this address that you're sending to is a fraud, right? So you want some system that blocks that transaction. Oh, now it's a wallet that has a bit more complexity to it, or it's a bit more intelligent. But you don't want to only do that. You also want to be able to stake your Solana so that it can yield stuff over time. Still a wallet, but now you can like pull money and park it away, make sure that it generates 3, 4, 5% per year or something like that, right? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think like the wallet, though it can be seen as a very simple thing, a very simple unit, it can turn out to become an entire orchestration platform. And that's what we set to become, right? For as an API first player, that was the thing we wanted to be when we started off. It was a developer tool, a developer platform. You have now multiple interfaces for users, etc. We are a wallet made for organizations, for B2B wallet, right? So banks, payment service providers, trading platforms, settlement networks will use us in the background as a SaaS, and now more and more on-prem, which is like a big thing here in the region because, from the sovereignty perspective, regulators want this mission critical infrastructure to run in their country, on their national soil. Should there be any criminal activity, they want police to be able to look, let's seize the keys or things like that. So we are like going into this wave when it comes to ticking the boxes, the compliance boxes, the regulatory boxes, making friends with everyone and making sure that they feel that they have enough sovereignty, enough control over those that digital values that we're creating and doing on-chain, and that requires a great deal of local deployments, not only of the keys, but also an entire set of services that are deemed critical, right? So yeah, that's where we are heading.
When you think about the difference between, for a bank, let's just take that as an example. I'd love to also touch on IBM and this exciting wave that you're riding with that. The difference between an on-premise model versus maybe the alternative, and how that affects how you build and go to market with something like Dfns. It seems like banks, specifically on-premise models, seem really important to them or typical for how they've done things. Give us maybe the differences of what is an on-premise model versus the alternative, and then with IBM or otherwise, how that takes shape into the new year for you for 2026.
Yeah, it comes in different layers. What you decide to keep inside an AWS data center and have that fully managed by AWS or Google Cloud or Azure, etc., versus what you decide to put in a server that's in your office that could be in the data center, but that you control, like a private data center, right? Where you would actually physically put in an HSM or a server inside a rack, or I could own the rack.
Yeah. Hence the name on-premise. Yes, we always like premise. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. So that trade-off of like, what am I going to put inside the public cloud? What am I going to put inside a more privately owned environment is always a trade-off. Banks historically have been, yes, because they predate the event of cloud. They have always had a lot of legacy systems on-prem. So that's a legacy tech death thing. But it also comes with this whole, like, again, to my point about regulators asking for more patrol sovereignty. The new startups that are popping up, like the neobank that wants to get regulated, every country ABC, will end up in the same conversations and with the same standards and expectations from the regulator. So they will want to, but the thing, what's interesting with a neobank is it's going to try to shovel as much SaaS and AWS as possible, whilst remaining in the perimeter of acceptability, right? So it's gonna try to put as little at on-prem as possible. So and that's what we're seeing, right? Like cloud is still a formidable accelerator in terms of scale, in terms of just focusing on your business, not having to tinker with physical devices that you're having in your private environment. So that's I guess like we are a SaaS business. We were first and foremost a SaaS business. We want to enable as much interoperability with legacy systems and on-prem environments as possible. But needless to say that we know that the future remains kind of very geared towards zero trust cloud, aka the type of cloud that has enough cryptographic guarantees that you can actually almost consider that it has the same properties as on-prem physical control, because you do have the encryption keys and the keys to the public key to access the public cloud stuff. So you kind of have this world that is navigating in multiple ways, and people try to configure and compose their stack in multiple ways, reading the textbook from their regulators, listening to the experiences of their teams, and the I would say the risk appetite as well. From one human being to another, it can be different. The cybersecurity standards from NIST and things like that, and all of that kind of amounts to a result. And sometimes it's very different from a bank to another as well.
There's so many different pieces to this puzzle working, not just on the tech stack that you've mentioned with all of the things from a fraud, risk, compliance, security, signing. Like there's just the product layer of that. There's so many, and then you apply like regional standards, and
There's so many from
there's so many dynamics, and you guys sit, in my mind, at the center of being able to be super modular and try to serve as many of those use cases as possible. Tell us about IBM. How did that deal happen? I've been so excited to hear more about this because, in my view, as someone who's been in the space for years, this relationship, this launch, what's possible with something like Dfns and IBM together is one of the most exciting, high upside, real applications of this technology. Tell us about how that happened and what that means for your business.
Yeah, so IBM has been actually in blockchain for a long time, but they have been contributing. We're now at Solana here, so I'm from I can be a bit spicy. Yeah, they have been this traditional player going into blockchain through the private blockchain lens and contributing to the Linux Foundation and doing good work, but it's not been like public chains all in on the new stuff. So we I think what they realize is that the world is shifting towards a certain direction. Public blockchains are definitely part of that new world. And what's interesting is that they had been working with some vendors so far, most of the popular wallet vendors, but they realized that as we are shifting from databases to blockchains, because that is essentially technically what is happening, right? Bank A has his database, Bank B has his database, use that for like decades and decades and decades. Your database is not going to look like my database because now we have had such a different adventure and we want to settle and we want to interoperate, but our data structures are so different that it's hard, right? So now you have to create all these layers on top to make it work, and it's costly, it's slow, etc., etc. Blockchains is like, wait, you use the same blockchain as I. Now it's like easy, right? So I think that simple value proposition is like making them understand that in order for IBM to still be relevant in the future, they need to embrace and sell with their infrastructure, which is mostly a hardware-based infrastructure, right? It's Linux one, it's like gigantic racks, it's computational machines that you have on-prem, etc. It's in order to those items, those awesome jewelry, like technological state of the art, it's really great stuff. But in order for those things to still kind of be recycled into the new world, they also need to sell the software, right? And so blockchain is part of that. And so they approached us in February, March. So I would say between February, March, and August for such an organization, hundreds of thousands of employees running 70% of the internet, including all the financial transactions, which is insane. And when I say running, I mean that at the end of the request, no matter how many, Stripe and Deserve and like applications we have on top, at the end of the request, an IBM machine will be pinged. For them to be rushing into this in 6 months, it's like, the top management was behind this. It was really something they were committed to and believe. So that was very nice for us, having been in the space for 5 years and heard a lot of skeptics, for the past years. It was amazing to see such a big company believe in it more than certain VCs, sometimes. And so now it's been great. Like I can't disclose anything, but the LOIs, the contracts they're signing, the calls at the corporation level, at the government level, at the bank level, across the world, in literally every single country. It's a shift. It's a turning point. And we see other IBM Live companies that now want to get into this, right? So it's a
Yeah. How do you think about the difference between the last 5 years of Dfns, typical customer, typical go-to-market, and how you package and bring that stack to your customers versus this what seems like very unique model with IBM, where they're it's a different recipe of them in some ways bringing or acting in that way to their clients. It's less direct, it seems like. Describe that a little bit of like what that technically means for you guys, and if that's something that you think is a model that you want to replicate with other large companies like that, or if that's maybe a unique, incredibly strategic thing that's maybe unique to IBM.
I don't think it will be unique based on the conversations we have, and they don't mind that it's not an exclusive partnership. It's an official partnership. It's not an exclusive one. Neither way, by the way, IBM will keep working in some cases with walled providers they have been working in the past with and signing contracts with in the past. Now, obviously, they will be selling their own products going forward.
And their product will be powered behind the scenes in many ways by...
Yeah, great. Yeah. Not as a SaaS, right? I mean, so yes, 3 versions. SaaS, where actually IBM is branding our product and selling it as a SaaS. That's kind of a novelty, a curiosity in many ways. Hybrid, and then fully on-prem. And that's where we're working towards until the month of March. We just hit yesterday general availability at IBM. So that means that now it's actually rubber stamp. Everything's like, good to go. So it took a while. We're in December, right? So it took a while. And what it means is that our code is basically being, duplicated with an environment that gets in to the IBM environment owned by IBM team that could have derived work. So they could essentially, if they want a new feature on top of that code, start building that, which would make the IBM product different from our product, right? But essentially everything we ship, everything we integrate, everything we build, if we integrate M0, IBM has access to that, aka banks that are using IBM could eventually use that. So in terms of a distribution for on-chain activity, we are an accelerator as well for IBM, right? And what's interesting for them is that though they have a great understanding of TradFi, legacy systems, regulation, compliance, yada, yada, we have this exposure to on-chain activity, which is a great thing because it makes you battle tested. It makes it like, the features that we build are actually something that people want to pay for and they're using, etc. So the developer community, the startup community, the scale community we have in our customer base is actually a great fertilizer as well for them, and is telling the banks like these are the winning recipes right now. You should try this integration. You should try this, etc.
It seems like as defense gets better at the foundation level, the integration that an IBM would have at the top is going to continue to improve over time.
Every month.
I love following you on LinkedIn because, and just like the done green check mark, just like you're constantly shipping new integrations and stuff. Speaking of that, and we're Breakpoint, we're here with Solana. Speak a little bit about, as we kind of turn the corner here, Solana, the impact of Solana from the infrastructure side, what it's meant to defense, and maybe from your perspective, how you're working with that team and what specifically you find valuable about building on Solana, and what might be unique about how that can bring more go-to-market opportunities for defense.
I remember the days when Solana was very much into the gaming space, et cetera, which makes sense for a foundation, a blockchain who wants to kind of try to capture as much activity and get some kind of feedback loop, handle peaks, et cetera, of activity. Gaming is a great use case for that. In the recent years, I would say payments, stablecoin payments use case has been hands down the kind of number one use case Solana has been trying to holding for and trying to attract developers and founders and to their chain for this use case, and they've succeeded, I would say, in many ways. I count. I mean, we have a large our customer base is pretty filled with stablecoin TSPs. So Iron, MovePay, Bridge, Stripe, Kaliza, Trace Finance, Shield. I mean, there are like 50 plus names, and many of them use Solana for sure. Like you'll hear some EVM chains, you'll hear Tron, and you'll hear Solana, right? That's the kind of they're in the top 3, top 4 chains that we need support. And when you say support a chain, like we were the first out the institutional grade wallet infrastructure to support SPL and SPL 2022, which enables stablecoins on Solana and not just Sol, right? So indexing the full chain, listening to all the events, enabling webhooks so that you can actually build and create programmatic workflows. But they have 20 plus endpoints that, you could be supporting, and non-transferable assets, which can be very interesting for streaming use cases, namely in tokenization. You have like fee sponsors that are before Ethereum and EDMs, like Solana had already built in at the protocol level the ability to sponsor fees, on-chain fees. So a transaction we go through without, the end user or the end client trying to figure out like, how do I issue a transaction at the same time pays the fees. This is like handled at the protocol level, which is very convenient. We have that. They are rolling out now confidential balances. Now it is like era of privacy preserving transactions on public chains. That's becoming a big thing. So confidential balances have gone through several iterations with the Solana Foundation. We're very excited to support that too. So you could basically when you send transaction before, if it's like you encrypt an email, right? It's like before you can encrypt it. So you can just...
Is this the token extensions product that they have, or is it evolved?
Yeah, correct. It's an extension, and confidential balances will enable us to on Solana, and then there are other ways on other chains, but to make sure that less data will be exposed publicly on the chain, which is a no-brainer when it comes to institutional finance, payments, whatnot. No, making sure that you can't front run a trade because you have information and you have like deduced, induced, a bunch of things before, which can be dangerous. Not having your customer go to you and say, hey, I want to, the Solana scanner explorer, and I saw that you had a customer you gave this price to last week. I want the same, right? Not knowing the context, just bullying the provider into accepting that, I see what you do, and now you need to kind of set the price right. Those things makes it very difficult for businesses to operate, and privacy is a must-have in those cases. So Solana is exceptionally good at shipping fast, which makes it a chain that we're close to. And now with this institutional adoption wave and the will to actually engage into that and not run away from it, right? That makes it even more appealing for us.
As we think about, I guess this is the last question I get to ask you. What would you leave the listeners with? We're ending the year 2025, going into 2026. You guys have some big things planned next year. You have some big logos you're going into the year with. When you think about, because you have so many things that you have a finite amount of time personally that you're going into Q1 with next year, what would you say are the really key focuses for you, and what are you strategically most excited about or focused on as we close here?
I'm going to give you 2 answers, because the first one is boring in as much as we have been addressing it today by saying, you have these huge powerhouse banks, other financial institutions. They come with their luggage, they come with their stuff, and they don't want to create they don't want to look at these sort of blank sheets perspective. They just want to bring their stuff inside their identity and access the management item, their credentials, their employee data, their core banking systems, etc. So being able to play ball with those systems and not go like, no, you need to like forget about that and join the new world. That narrative will work. It's too complex. So if you want to create bridges and help as many people get into the on.
You know this about me. I'm just like visuals, metaphors. Like I'm imagining what I had to do coming to Abu Dhabi, which is like, oh, your bag's too heavy. Like go and awkwardly, like, you know, shift some stuff around. You have to change if you want to get on board. Yeah. And that sucks. And I think that has prevented so many IBM like companies from getting on board, where they're walking into the airport. They have, you know, 17 bags and some of these things, who even knows what's in there? But I've had this, and it's sort of like defense has, oh, you don't have to go through general security. Like we have a private jet for you. It's out here. Bring everything you have. We'll make it work. And like treating clients that way of like, you don't have to change to come through the system. We're not forcing you to, you know, be like different because we exist. We're going to meet you where you are. You know, maybe we'll give you one last suitcase that's going to be better than all the other ones. I love that approach. I really, really love that approach.
But on the flip side of that, they will have to change in many ways too, and they know it, right? So we were releasing this report with a top tier consulting company and IBM next month, just about that, right? Like how fast and what exactly will a financial institution have to change as well? Not only, you know, key, and how also DeFi needs to change, right? So it's like we're meeting in between. There's a middle ground to find it, and it's going to be found very organically. So to answer your question, next year, if we can contribute to that and help as much as possible on that path and accelerate go to dates or for on-chain stuff, that's already a big win. And I would say the second thing is, as a company, I'm speaking on behalf of Fontaines, we want to create features that will unlock things, unlock new situations. I'm a very big fan of like companies like Wiz that orchestrated across cloud infrastructure in a way that no one else did. So you had like the CISO of Walmart that we had like AWS and Google and Azure across the world, etc. And handling all of that complexity, all those deep objects and users everywhere and access controls and monitoring that is extremely complex after a while. And we see how, you know, of course, when you had just your Ledger Nano in your pockets and you would connect that to some dApp, like that was easy. That's like step one, right? That has organizations become more mature, more complex. Scale comes traction, more users, millions of peoples, a lot of complexity that over the course of many years, you end up with a mess if it's not like well handled. And that level of admin friendliness, admin experience, not user experience, just being able to safely manage that complexity and monitor and observe and intervene in a no-code way almost, you know, and that's where we are kind of transitioning away from. We wanted to remain the top developer tool in the institutional world, but we also want to address a whole world that is non-tech, people that are not developers, and that want the same level of access, the same level of granularity, and the same level of accuracy of what they're doing, how they should intervene, and how they can execute a trade, actually a payment for AHC successfully reliably, without any disruptions. That in itself is hard.
Chris, thanks for the time. It's a push. Thank you for your thoughtfulness.
Up-leveling of the space that you and Defense and Clarissa team have just, what you've done for the space. It's just so cool to see. I'm excited for this next year. There's more stuff between us next year. It sounds like it's going to be really fun. Would love to, maybe when we talk again, we'll go into that research report that you're coming out with and we'll break it down and dive a bit deeper. So thanks for your time today.
I'm very touched, and thank you very much for this interview. And you too have been doing a lot for eSpace. So thank you.